and welcome to this special transmission on the budget. I'm Maqbool and you're watching PTV WORLD, and we'll be continuing speaking about the budget 2025-26, which of course has been announced by the Finance Minister earlier today, and important elements to it with reference to what relief has been announced and how different sectors have been incentivized or taxed, and then of course the ways that we're going to move forward with both governance and structural reforms, and how exactly will the targets be met, and the kind of measures that are to be taken by the government in this regard are very, very important. And earlier, of course, we were discussing the ways in which this has impacted different sectors and how others are also going to be incentivized. And of course, moving forward, what is the government's plans in reducing the expenditures, and of course moving forward with increased reforms, not just in the tax sector but also in others, where of course we have seen that previously there have been slashes, and there's also been cuts with regards to any potential growth. So we're going to be taking a look at what that means in terms of the budget targets and what the government plans to achieve. For this and more, as always, in the studios I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we're also going to be joined online by Dr. Aima Mehdi, who's an economist, and she will also be of course sharing her own insights. But before we do that, Faisal, I want your take on this particular budget as well, and we of course spoke about this in the previous hour with different sectors, and you had some very important points with regards to moving forward and producing an enabling environment for the youth, and particularly in important sectors such as R&D and IT. But I want your take in terms of what we haven't seen so far in the budget. What sort of reforms then can possibly be taken in these sectors that are both practical and also part of what the fiscal resources allow us?
Yes, Sana, I always, whenever I'm asked about IT related, advancement in Pakistan, as earlier we were listening to Dr. Waqar, and he said this industry still is grooming in Pakistan. In that context, of course, when we have a youth bulge of Pakistan, that is nearly around 67% of our, of course, population is considered as youthful, including me. And and then and you as well. Sorry, Farrukh.
Okay.
What I think about it is that there should be incentive based sort of advancement in terms that people at large, youth at large, it gets attracted towards it. And as we were of course going through the details of the budget, and in which the speech as well, we had to listen to this, that of course we are thinking about increasing $25 billion worth of IT related exports, and IT is going to be of course steered towards the AI based economy. And to me, I think this is a very positive initiative, but at the same time, since more than 3 years we have been highlighting this aspect, that Pakistan has the capacity and has the workforce to actually take it to more than $50 billion worth of IT related exports, emerging technologies, AI, and then IT sector, all of that can actually contribute a huge amount in terms of Pakistan's economy. To me, I think this should be taken it as a as Dr. Waqar was saying, the early stages in which you have to promote it, and the only way you can promote it through is to give the best of the facilities to the people who are involved in these sectors, number one, and number two, relaxation. Give them as much relaxations as you can, so that they can bring in more and more billions of dollars in Pakistan. Eventually that is going to increase the middle class, and once middle class is increased in Pakistan, that actually gives a sort of class to Pakistan that is considered as having a buying power. And these people, I'm pretty much sure, they are not going anywhere else to shop around in other countries. They are going to of course shop in Pakistan, and they are going to spend that money within Pakistan, and eventually it would be a plus to Pakistan's economy. And to me, I think there should be more incentive based AI and IT related setups in Pakistan. And when it comes to research and developments, I mean, you yourself are of course attached to one of the premier universities of Pakistan, where science and technology is pivotal, and to me Pakistan's economy, uh, when it comes to science and technology,
Yeah.
it is pivotal for
Yeah.
Pakistan's economy as well. And your university is actually producing, your institution is producing, a large number of people who are going to contribute in this side of the economy. And research and development which is going on in there, that needs to be of course further improved. And I always advocate that the as Farrukh earlier highlighted, that of course the different industries, they are supposed to of course invest in the research and development sectors.
Yeah.
But at the same time, government and the higher education sector of Pakistan, they need to of course enhance and further increase the research and development budgets of the universities, so that more and more students who are making their projects out there, they get more support from the government, and government gives them ownership to some extent. Of course it is happening, and that needs to be further improved, so that this concept of research and development and this concept of emerging technologies and AI and IT related IT based economy, I think this is the future, and this needs to be further looked into.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us also welcome in the discussion Dr. Aima Mehdi, who's joined us online. Thank you very much, Dr. Aima, for being a part of the discussion. And I welcome your first thoughts on the budget before we begin our discussion, in terms of what you think about the overall targets and the outlay, and of course the different sectors that have been outlined by the Finance Minister. Dr. Aima, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Please go
I
ahead.
can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. So I'll touch upon a few main things that I have observed from the budget. So our budget has actually kind of reduced from last year's budget. It's around 7 billion reduction, and that I guess is coming from how inflation has reduced from previous year. However, I've also noticed a few other things that have come into play. The federal minister has explained how he wants industry to grow and how he wants it to be aligned with Vietnam. So he's looking forward to reduce the policy rate. So there's ease of borrowing, etc. So that's one thing I've noticed. There's also increase in our defense budget, like everyone's been talking about, and the reason is quite obvious. In terms of tax, which was the highlight, we've seen that the exemption for Fata Pata has now been ended, and there will be a lot of tax collection from there. So that's a good point. We've also seen that there is a reduction in the general tax, but there's an increase in the GST. So I think overall the tax rate will be the same, and there's not going to be any reduction in the net tax. Unfortunately, there'll be still a lot of taxes to be paid. However, some things that I really wanted to see was increase in, for example, industrial output through various means. I don't see that in the entire budget. So that's one flaw in the budget that I clearly see. Also, I would have liked to see more being spent on education. We see that there is an increase in Danish school, but I see that a lot of universities in Pakistan are under finance. So if we could have just made them better, that would have sounded better. There's a carbon levy now that is going to help the environment, but I don't know how that is going to work. We don't have any spending sort of things. At the same time, our overall agricultural output is going down. So I want to see how we're looking towards food security. That's one thing. And overall, I mean, it's the IMF budget. It's a budget that shows that we are following our standby facility recommendations. So yeah, it's quite obvious. Yeah.
Right. And Dr. Aima, when we take a look at the different areas, there's, of course, the tax collection targets and the tax reforms that are very, very important as well, and how different sectors have been taxed. What do you make of the kind of measures that the Finance Minister has spoken about in terms of moving forward with more digitalization, even introducing AI, when we take a look at the different numbers, and then, of course, the revenue target itself?
I think we've consecutively missed revenue targets and growth targets. So I don't know how confident I am in saying that we might miss those targets again. It's kind of obvious that we will be missing a few targets. A growth target definitely, because we are not aligned or competent enough compared to other countries in the Asian region or South Asian region. I was quite surprised the way Federal Minister mentioned he wants Pakistan to be in line with Vietnam. Well, Vietnam has worked on their labor productivity. They've worked on their electricity charges. They're not in IMF extended fund facilities or IMF lenders. Certainly not the top 10. So that's one thing that doesn't align with industrial sector. However, there are like a few small good things. They're trying to say that we've highlighted the top kind of non-taxpayers. There's good news for the for not fertilization, but fertilizers industry in terms of agriculture. That IMF wanted us to have taxation on fertilizer, etc. So that's going to be out of place. It's not going to be in place now. So that's a good thing. We have a 37 million climate package from World Bank anyway, so we're going to work towards that, which is a good thing. However, the best thing I've heard is PIA's privatization and the privatization of Roosevelt Hotel. But if they had extended it towards reduction in SOEs, state-owned enterprises, and whatever is spent over there, if they reduce that and at the same time spent it on things like education again, because we have such a huge youth, 40% or more than 40% spending all that money on youth skill development, etc., that would have been better. But I don't know which way it's going. And then again, spending on defense budget up to 9 from $2.12 billion is quite a lot of money, but I do understand we need it, certainly at this point in time. So here we go again.
All right, I'll come back to you, Dr. Aima. Farrukh, I want your take on the SOEs, and also we'll pick up where we left in the previous segment with the data regime as well, but we'll come to that later.
Yeah.
But for now, because SOEs is something you've always asked any of our economists that have come on the show, and it's an important one. And while, of course, PIA was mentioned, we haven't really seen a lot of these measures actually materializing into something tangible. And then PIA is, of course, not the only SOE that we're talking about. So is there an actual action plan towards this? Because these announcements are similar.
No, I think that there's a conviction, but there's also this emphasis repeatedly, because it is not merely coming from Pakistan's own side. It is also something that you have actually agreed when talking to IMF and other donors. Remember that one thing that was really very pithily said yesterday by the finance minister, and today also, that this amount that actually goes waste in SOEs could have gone elsewhere. And this country has no dearth of need for expenditure elsewhere. As we keep on pointing out, look how many places, how much corner cutting we have done. So regarding PIA and Gencos and these power companies, there seems to be a clear direction. Which exactly are we going to do? What exactly we are going to do? Then, although it wasn't highlighted that much, but there are reports regarding the Russian investment in transformation of steel mills. So that is also one unit that seems to be actually has been underperforming, and that seems not underperforming, hasn't performed actually. If it can be revived, that will be great news. So the government, what the government seems to be doing is it is going for triage, prioritizing the biggest waste making organizations and trying to actually get rid of them, whatever it could actually reorganize and could make enough profitable for the private sector to invest in. We have good examples also. For example, PTCL was one huge asset that the country had to divest, and Pakistan managed to do it. Similarly, back in 90s, Pakistan also did the same with the banks. So there are great examples in the country that we can follow. Unfortunately, because recently our experience hasn't been great regarding privatization of PIA, that becomes an issue. Something else that I wanted to say, with your permission, Sana, because Faisal was talking about IT and all, there seems to be some problem in our understanding of how economy of future is going to work. One, regarding AI, if you're really serious about AI, you need to actually create an infrastructure, right? You have to have data centers. I don't see that kind of investment in that idea. But then there is this report called 2027, which shows something incredible, that AGI will be achieved by 2027. And if that happens, all your knowledge-based economy, the way you actually go to universities, and of course Faisal was extolling your university, that is great, but there are other institutions too, they will amount hardly to anything, Sana, because then even now coding is not being done only by people. Now it is called rave coding, which means you tell AI what to code and it codes it, right?
Yeah.
So with that kind of transformation, what really gets to me is that while we are actually taking measures regarding firefighting or immediate future, but the kind of transformation that is coming, remember this mobile phone killed so many industries within days when it came. Photography, right? Video centers, music centers, everything went away. So I don't want some exogenous pressures to totally transform it. Similarly, India's water politics and blackmail, right? Whatever it is, we have to have a concrete policy on everything. So if we have those things, I am happy. If we are a bit concerned and we seem to have some kind of brain fog, then we are lost.
Absolutely. Dr. Aima, I want your take on this as well, and add to that in the ways that when we talk about the measures that are needed to improve certain sectors, there's also, of course, a lot of emphasis on how we're actually going to invest in those structural reforms and how we're actually going to make those changes. While we talk about all of these issues and areas that are needed, there's also the limitation of fiscal resources, there's also conditionalities by the IMF, and of course priorities with reference to economic sector. So how do we engage in that when we're planning for the future?
And Dr. Aima, if you can also address this question, that of course when we go through our budget, it clearly says that for the local industries who are of course producing products for Pakistanis, they are going to be helped out in terms of finding the cheapest raw materials. How does it work, and would it affect Pakistan's local industry to of course produce enough so that people of Pakistan can be attracted towards the local industries?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Aima.
Sorry, Mr. Hammond. I could make a word out of what he said, but I could hear Sana clearly. Sana, could you please reiterate his question?
Faisal, would you mind?
I'll simply repeat the question for you. Of course, when we look into the budget, it clearly says that for the local industry to make the local products available to Pakistan, of course government is thinking about helping out the local industry in finding the cheapest of the raw materials so that the end product is cheaper enough for people of Pakistan, and then they can rely on the local products rather than of course importing it from outside. How does it work, and would it have a good effect on Pakistan's economy?
Dr. Aima, I don't know if you're able to hear Faisal, but he's speaking about raw materials that are being imported, and whether or not we can actually do something about helping that within our own economy and working on developing those raw materials. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Domestically.
Yeah, it's better this time around. So, Sana, I'll take your question first. That was around making the economy state of the art and improving how we do things for future restructuring, etc. I was hoping to see something about the restructuring, which I haven't, but let's start small, like point of cash facilities, etc. Increasing the number of filers. Well, the thing is, how the government should tax people is a carrot and stick sort of a policy where you return to people what they pay for. Unfortunately, Pakistan has always been in a fiscal deficit where people are not paying their taxes except for the salaried class. Two, they haven't been seeing any sort of return. Even if in this budget you see that there's a 90 crore budget for health in federal capital, but not about nothing for other provinces. Education, etc., is really lacking behind. Health is lacking behind. Industrial zones are lacking behind. Even the big industries have moved away from Pakistan to other countries, including Jordan and Vietnam and all the other countries. So if we want to be in line with other countries, we need to have our export sector or the industrial sector as competitive, or at least a little bit more competitive. It's not just in economic terms, but also in terms of trust, in terms of economic policy certainty, in terms of politics, etc. This aligns to what Faisal has asked about how can we substitute imports with things that we create in Pakistan. And there's two sides to this question. One, import substitution is not always the most feasible and the most economically beneficial policy. However, for growing countries or growing economies, I would still say Pakistan as its frontier could be a growth economy. It is feasible to substitute a lot of imports because we have a lot of manpower, we have land, we can grow things, and there is talent, and we can certainly train our youth. So that's one thing. Second thing, we can find a competitive advantage, and we can really exploit that competitive advantage, and we can start exporting that and then start importing things that we cannot generate on economies of scale, and then we can build our reserves. Right now we only have an import cover of two months. Certainly importing stuff is not in our benefit, it's not in the country's benefit. Our economy is going to overheat again, we're pushing up inflation. So if we train our youth, our skill, we stop the brain drain, we have enough opportunities in Pakistan. People will be in Pakistan and will be able to produce a lot of things that we've been importing, and indeed we'll be able to export that. But it's all about aligning the political stance with the economic stance and what the country needs. Definitely in the budget that has been announced, we don't see anything such as vocational training. We've seen something as Benazir budget, Benazir income support, and we've been seeing this year on year since Benazir passed. That's fine, but this is a debt subsidy. You're just giving people money to feed them roti, pani, kapra, whatever. It's not being channelized towards skill building. It's not being channelized towards small industry or medium scale industry. There are amazing things being made in Pakistan, and they're being exported by the designers, either themselves or like people who are making cosmetics or shoes. If this gets channelized through a trust system, then surely we can be in line with Vietnam and Vietnam and China and other countries. But the thing is, we lack that import, that cover. Our currency is not stable. Our political system is not stable, and surely the richest and the biggest are seeing their own personal benefit. That's the thing.
Right. Let me actually try my luck in asking question. I hope my voice carries. Dr. Saba, twice you have actually brought up Vietnam, and that seems to be a very important story that Pakistan seems to have missed, especially since Trump first term. At that time, there were these massive trade wars with China. At that time, it seemed that Vietnam was the natural place to actually go across and export, and they capitalized on that. Unfortunately, it seems that Pakistan, while being so connected both with China and America and Europe, Pakistan seems to have missed that opportunity. Do you think that currently there is some reckoning, some understanding of what actually went wrong and how to fix it?
Sorry, Faisal, I think there's an issue with your mic. I've just informed your show's director. I can hear Sana properly, but I can't hear you at all. There's so much distortion.
This is not Faisal, this is Farrukh.
This is actually Farrukh. We have another analyst in the studio who's asking you a different question.
Regarding Vietnam
right.
case, yeah.
If
Right,
you could,
and if you can elaborate on the Vietnam case and see if there is anything that we can draw from there.
can anybody fix?
And have we learnt anything
Have
from
we learned
Vietnam?
anything from there? Dr. Aima, can you hear me?
I can only hear you.
Okay, great. So Farrukh was asking with regards to Vietnam and whether or not we've drawn any lessons from there.
Can you repeat your question, Sana?
In fact, it's Farrukh's question that I'm reiterating with regards to Vietnam and whether or not Pakistan is actually learning anything from there.
Okay, thanks for the question. So far, yes, I think the first thing, I don't know if Pakistan is learning anything or not, but the first thing that we can learn from Vietnam is we need to control our population. So if you read about Vietnam's history or international history, you'd see after the war with the US, they were completely poor. They were not producing anything, and they decided and learned it that we need to control our population. Pakistan right now is the world's fourth biggest population, and we don't have enough water and food to feed our population, which is important just not just for survival, but their growth, brain development, etc. So the first thing we need to learn is to have a very executable and a successful birth control plan in Pakistan. The second thing we need to learn from Vietnam is that everyone goes to work. Work doesn't mean big or small. Vietnam specializes in a lot of international industries, and one of them is like fashion and nails and eyelashes. And these people have exploited this industry to the core. In the world, wherever you go, these fashion items are known to be Vietnamese, although they were not invented in Vietnam. They were invented in the US, but Vietnamese learned these and they have exploited this industry worldwide. And they're earning actually millions and millions in revenue. The government is earning just by exporting these very small things. The factories take little capital, but they can earn a lot of money. So Pakistan really needs to increase and enhance their productivity by starting small acts. So if you want to learn from Vietnam, you need to learn the skill and then exploit the skill, which unfortunately we are not, because Vietnam then started free education. Do we have free education? No. Vietnam's second biggest successful economic policy was to have free transportation, and have free public transportation. Have we achieved that? No. And you know why this is important for economic growth? Because we need labor mobility. Our urban towns are extremely saturated, and we want them to spread out, which is beneficial for growth and development. And people should be able to commute easily. They can live a little bit 2 hours difference on a train. We don't have that sort of labor mobility. That's an issue in Pakistan. Skill development is an issue. Energy is an issue, and free schooling and medicine is an issue. So if we learn these top three things, we'll be able to be better than Vietnam. We're not lacking behind. We have people, and people are looking for opportunities, and they're willing to do so. And in Vietnam, if the government figures out that someone's being involved in bribery, etc., then the punishment is quite clear. They cut your head, unfortunately. But corruption is too widely spread in Pakistan. I've not recently checked, but 5-6 months ago we were on like the top 10 ranks in corruption. So if you want to learn from Pakistan, if you want to learn from Vietnam, all the lessons are loud and clear for us to follow.
Can you hear me now?
She won't be able to hear you, but I will forward.
Yeah. Now she can.
I think you'll have to speak loudly enough for my mic to catch you.
Exactly. Dr. Aima, my question to you is that, of course, when we talk about the budgets throughout the world, especially the developing world, the benchmark always is how to increase the middle class every year. And the middle class is the one that is actually pivotal for any country's economy. Are we on the right track? Are we trying to increase our middle class in Pakistan or not?
Sana, I'm sorry, but you'll have to reiterate his question again because the voice keeps breaking.
My pleasure. Dr. Aima, he's asking about the middle class and whether or not there are any steps taken by the government to increase the middle class in Pakistan.
So the amount of taxes that have been applied on the middle class in Pakistan?
No, to increase the middle class in Pakistan.
Yes, that's a very to invest in. That's actually a very good question, and that links directly to sustainable economic growth. And thank you for bringing this question up. So like when countries are about to topple economically, what happens is that their income inequality increases. So income inequality, or if you go and read about the Gini coefficient, is like the difference between the highest earning class and the lowest earning class. As soon as the difference increases, this means that the lower class is being squashed. So the middle class is being squashed. So why do we need a middle class? We need the middle class because they are the drivers of economy. They buy things that are medium range in price. They work in the corporate sector or the civil service. They generate a lot of revenue by doing small scale activities. The highest class will always invest in big projects, but then they need people who are educated, are skillful to work over there. The lower class, unfortunately, is the least beneficial because they cannot do the white collar job that the highest class needs. What is happening in Pakistan? The middle class is shrinking. We have the top notch people who either own like for 30-40 families who either own all the land in Pakistan or either own the biggest corporations and banks in Pakistan, or we have the people like 48% is below the poverty line. How do you expect these people who can't feed their kids two rotis a day will help them educate and gain the skill? If you invest in middle class, you get a lot of benefit economically. You get people, like I said, working in the white collar jobs. You get people who go to the markets and malls and who buy things and there's a consumer demand. You get people who are sophisticated enough to run the country and to represent the country in small forums. And you get people who are then interested in the things that the highest class either makes, industries, etc. And Pakistan direly needs to invest or increase its middle class, and it's very easy. You invest in the lower class, you invest in their skill development, you give them opportunities for small and medium scale industries, and and slowly and softly you build a middle class. Vietnam has one of the highest middle class. So does China. Well, China has a lot of rich people as well now, but it still has a huge middle class. India also has a huge middle class. It's just very unfortunate in Pakistan that we don't. Our middle class is shrinking. People are getting poorer day by day. That's the issue, and government should actually support these people. Like Benazir income program should be directed towards the middle class, their skill development, free schooling. So who is this free schooling going to be? The lower people are going to be at benefit, but the highest benefit will be for the middle class, and they'll be able to generate and run the wheel of the economy in a very nice manner.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Ahmad, there's also concerns with regards to when we talk about the budget, what is going to be of help in terms of the business community. And of course, the energy and power sector is very, very important, and aspects to move away or to deal with the issue of circular debt. And I want your take on that, on whether or not this budget offers something new for us.
As much as I dial into the budget talks today, there was a mention that we'll have restructuring of our electricity tariffs. I'm not hugely in favor of net metering because net metering means essentially you haven't been able to put yourself at a benefit by installing solar panels, and now there's going to be higher GST on and import tax on solar panels anyway. So any tax we could have reaped from there is going away. Also, we've had IPPs. We have a lot of supply of electricity and for a production of electricity, but it's not being supplied because demand is low because of higher charges. Even if the per unit cost has gone down, the government has decided to put in taxes to pay back debt. Also, our debt restructuring for our circular debt restructuring is with the retail sector, retail banking, and we sell our dollars to them and then buy them in future. So we're doing like hedging, future hedging with the same money that we get from IMF, same dollars that we get from IMF. We sell them and we then borrow them from the banks, and we're trying to reduce our policy rates. So it's a circular debt being more circular, and we really need to reduce our tariffs so that we can enhance our industry. We need to provide industry with a lot of free energy for it to expand. We need to give our farmers free electricity for their tube wells, for their generation, for whatever machinery they need. And I don't see that happening. Also, at the same time, petrol and diesel prices are going to increase, which is again going to intercept a lot of things, such as per unit production cost, our labor mobility, and then the storage. I've forgotten the name. There was some storage facility that was allowed to industry so that they could produce their own electricity, and now that has been taxed at 30%, and the tax came into place like 3 months ago, which is why industries have stopped producing electricity, and they're trying to sell it to the grid because they have that capacity in place to produce but they don't want to use it to produce anything. Instead, they're trying to sell it to grid, and nobody is taking care of this at the moment. And I'm afraid 6 months from now, this will become another circular debt or a debt of a debt. And we're unable to come out of the power crisis since a decade, and it's such a shame, all in all.
Absolutely. Dr. Aima, thank you so much for joining us and being a
Thank
part
you
of the
very much.
discussion and speaking to us regarding the budget. And Farrukh, I want your take on what Dr. Aima was earlier saying. I had a feeling you wanted to add something to that, but also...
I wanted to clarify myself also. Yeah.
Please go ahead. Also, with regards to what we were earlier discussing in terms of what we're actually relying on in terms of numbers, and we talked about it earlier in the previous segment as well, and how that is important, where we're actually getting that data from and how credible it is, and also in terms of factors that then directly impact us in terms of what mitigation steps we need to take and what measures are needed.
Yeah, first of all, regarding Vietnam, there's a reason why I actually brought up that issue, right? And let us face it, the clearest example of what went wrong here and what happened there is that although Vietnam had already taken those measures that doctors have actually mentioned, but there came a huge window of opportunity. When during President Trump's first term, there was some kind of, trade war. At that time, it seemed that China won't be able to export to other countries, right?
Yeah.
At that time, what happened was that they essentially used other countries for further processing and sending off their exporting, right, their products. So Vietnam actually used that opportunity and has really grown. And at this moment, that is why President Trump in his second term wants to put so much tariff on Vietnam. And Vietnam has offered, because there is this reciprocal argument, to go for zero tax also, because they have benefited a lot. What went wrong here, Sana? There seems to be something very interesting that happened. While President Trump actually took over in the US, there seems to be some kind of economic hit job in Pakistan between 2017 and 2022. The economy was structured in a way, every time there was a finance minister, there were some powers who would actually find a way to remove them. Every time this happened, Sana, and then there was a political crisis upon the political crisis also. While we did not have the kind of stability needed for these opportunities, perhaps industrial capacity also, Vietnam actually flourished. So what does it tell us? It tells us that you have to have one finance team, you have to have stability, and you have to have long-term plan. And that's why I'm glad that there's Udan Pakistan and we have this very capable finance minister. Now, the second thing regarding middle class also, it was very important. Perhaps that the way we were communicating, the actual question was not carrying. Look, there has been a shrinking of middle class all over the world. There is a beautiful a book documenting all this by Thomas Piketty called Capital in 21st Century. He says that the rich are rich, we knew, and the poor are poor, but we did not know the quantum of that. Rich have become very rich and poor have become extremely poor. And that's why middle class has been shrinking. But in Pakistan, because of the inflation numbers that we have seen over past decade, and then taxation and all these macroeconomic stabilization crises, our middle class has been shrinking constantly. And unfortunately, what happened is I have seen people actually going below poverty line just in front of me, and that was horrible experience. So how do you actually correct that? There are two methods. One is control, the other one is free market economy. The control one is, of course, you keep on creating more public SOEs and then inducting people into that. The free market economy works in a way that you create more businesses, you have more economic activity, and through that you have more jobs. That will not happen till the time you don't get a long period growth, consistent growth in the country. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. And regarding numbers, I think that numbers are gated, but there seems to be a problem with our measuring system. Remember, I brought up a very interesting book about numbers in India, and it was said that they are down to, because of the colonial legacy, there are 20 to 25 silos from the district collector to health department and Aarti that all have very concrete numbers. Though the only trick is to bring them together. India has abandoned that idea. Pakistan tries to keep on doing it. Our health departments could give you huge numbers. Your agricultural department could give you good data. But unfortunately, because everything has been actually kind of collapsing in all over the world, and in this country there has been regression. Our data might be good, but it should be perfect. Unfortunately, that is not the case. We have to keep on working on our data collection. If you have good data collection, Sana, this country is made. If you don't have good data, if there's even an iota of a problem with the way you collect and then actually present it or actually use it for policy, then things go awry. Because we have seen elsewhere also there's this movement where billionaires think that you can actually work out data and then throw money at it. Unfortunately, that seems to be, I'm forgetting the name of that, effective altruism, right? That movement has been, EA has been quite big in IT sector, in AI also. But unfortunately, because we don't have the kind of data that we need, we keep on lagging behind.
Right. Faisal, you want to add something?
Yeah, just wanted to add, in this middle class, phrase, I just wanted to add, in recent times, of course, Pakistan, as Farrukh has rightly pointed out, that Pakistan middle class has shrunk. There are many reasons to it. Of course, one of the reasons is wars in the world, especially Ukraine crisis. It had actually affected all of the countries throughout the world. And the second one is, initially we saw that for 2 years in this country there was a political turmoil, which now is everything is calmed down now, but of course it was there, and it had a huge role to play in terms of shrinking Pakistan's middle class. And overall, Sana, middle class, as Dr. Aima was of course mentioning it as well, that it is pivotal when it comes to a country's economic backbone. It is a country's economic backbone. I mean, they are the ones who are going to, of course, earn from this country and then spend in this country, and this is how the economic circle keeps on going around. And there are many examples in the world. The countries that saw success in terms of their economic success, the only way they could do it through was, of course, by expanding, enhancing their middle class. Countries like Malaysia, countries like earlier mentioned Vietnam, and then India as well. Of course, all of these countries, they have grabbed their momentum, economic momentum, just because they have been working on how to increase their middle class. Pakistan needs to, of course, put efforts into increasing the middle class. But Sana, very frankly, I would say it here that of course we saw that inflation was being caused in this country just because of course, the wars were going on elsewhere, and Pakistan was being impacted, badly impacted by that. And then political turmoil for 2 years, of course, it affected the inflation. And in a country where inflation hits, of course, you are going to lose a huge chunk of the middle class, and that's what happened. I mean, our examples are in front of everyone. If the ratio between inflation and the pay rise, it's equal, and it is going side by side, then of course it doesn't affect the middle class. But as soon as the inflation is larger than the your pay rise, then of course you are going to lose a huge chunk of your middle class, and I think that needs to be looked into, and that's how we can progress.
I can, with your permission, Sana, I just wanted to actually challenge a couple of things. I hope that is okay.
Yes.
Regarding this whole idea that only, this war in Ukraine might have caused inflation, and that's why we actually lost this. Even before that, there was this COVID issue, right?
Yeah.
Before that also, remember that something happened in 2017. Economy was going great. All of a sudden, what was done was there was one finance minister whose name was Slara. He had his own approach, right? And it was going great. IMF was giving you clean sheet. But then what happens? All of a sudden, we have a different finance minister. He was great also, but his approach to dollar, on one side you have this control of dollar rate, on the other side somebody comes and just opens it up, right? All of a sudden your currency falls, and there is this flight of capital, flight of dollars, and that continues. The moment that guy actually stabilizes, he's gone. Then another comes, he's gone, right? So it kept on happening until we had a change elsewhere. And after that, all of a sudden we saw some kind of stabilization. Regarding India, India's middle class is almost gone. This whole idea that India had the middle class, it did.
Yeah.
But now, because of Modi's policies, the way they actually came up with demonetization and then so many others, they don't now even document it. They have put projections and all is bagatelle.
Yeah.
You cannot trust it. So
Right.
other countries might have middle class, but India, I don't know, their numbers cannot be trusted.
Right. Thank you very much, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us and being a part of this transmission. We are, of course, talking about the budget that was announced earlier today. We will be discussing more of that in the coming days, but that's all we have from the transmission at the moment. Stay tuned to PTV World.